The Chicago Bulls add some shooting in the undrafted free agency market, and we got to react to day 2 of the draft, and of course, the draft overall. What are your thoughts on it? We'll talk about all that and more. Let's go. If you guys are rocking with the channel, please hit that like button. Please subscribe to the page. We do talk Chicago Bulls daily on this channel. It's the only channel talking Bulls, how Bulls fans talk. So make sure that you get in tune with us, man. Let's get to the news at hand as the Chicago Bulls go out and they add a couple of shooters by signing Wooga Poplar of Villanova. He has signed an Exhibit-10 deal with the franchise, and Mizzou's Caleb Grill, which is a player that is actually very intriguing for the Chicago Bulls here, as they have signed him to a 2-way contract per Mizzou. Listen, let's get into this. I think this, looking at Caleb Grill, he's the guy who I want to zero in here first, because when you look at some of the splits on this young man, I think you have to be very intrigued by his shooting. Now, he does come in he is a point guard, comes in at about 6'3". In his time in college, 6 seasons in college. So a guy who really knows his game well. You guys know that I like a player who comes in that kind of already understands his game, and I think the Bulls need some of those. But what's very intriguing about him, he averaged 13.7 points, 3.6 assists, 1.5 steals per game. So the defense is a big part of that, while taking nearly 7 three-pointers per game, shooting that at almost a 40% clip, 39.6% from the three-point line. And that's something that the Bulls can truly utilize on this team, especially with Josh Giddey. If you're trying to build around Giddey, the expectation is that the Bulls are going to sign Josh Giddey to a future deal. And if we're being honest, Mark Eversley kind of slipped up in the presser and said as much when being asked a question. They were talking about, you've got 12 players, possibly 13 on this roster when you sign. And Mark Eversley basically just said, yeah, we've got 13 players on this roster, blah, 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 blah. So in my mind, I would think that means that you're expecting to sign Josh Giddey here. But here's what I do like about Caleb Grill. 2-way player. I think he shows some really good intensity. I think he shows some grit, and I think that getting him in here on a 2-way deal, especially ahead of the offseason, summer league and things like that, is going to be very interesting. He's just somebody who's played a ton of basketball. He's somebody who, again, knows his game and probably will be the kind of player who is just a 3-and-D type of guy, a guard that can come in and try and do his best to lock somebody down. And I think he plays the passing lanes extremely well. You see the 1.7 steals per game there. To me, I think that really stands out about his game. And that's something that you can have from a guard position. I understand we have a ton of guards on this team. I would rather have some of the guys that we do have. A Trey Jones, to me, sticks out more, but adding that 3-point shooting is something that you can't overlook. And so Caleb Grill, welcome to the Chicago Bulls. Hopefully this all ends up working out and you find yourself a spot on this team in the long run. Now, also looking at Villanova's Wooga Poplar, he's a very interesting player as well. 6'5" guard. Now, he scored a little bit more in his time. He also earned 3rd team All Big East honors in his time, and won the Portsmouth Invitation, and got a Portsmouth Invitational Tournament nod. He averaged 15.3 points, 7 rebounds per game, while shooting at 38% from the 3-point line. And that, to me, is one where I understand, even on an Exhibit-10 deal, he's probably not going to be somebody who makes his team. Maybe he finds his way onto the Windy City Bulls, but that is a prospect that I do think is worth taking a look at and worth developing there. When you talk about the fact that defensively still gives you a little bit of intensity, not nearly as much to me as a Caleb Grills, but I think that when you look at him on the boards, the Bulls really prioritize guards that can go out there and rebound. We see that with Josh Giddey. We've seen that with Ayo Dosunmu. Dosunmu. I think that that's something that he could add as well. And the strength that this young man has, when you look up some of his tape, look up some of the games that he played in, I think that's where he really stands out. He shot 38% on 5 attempts per game, which I do like as well. With both of these guys, they're not shooting high percentages on a couple of three-pointers a game. They're taking shots, and that is a big part of their game. And so to me, I think that's something to really take a look at, especially adding that in if you are going to next to Noah Essengay. And I think that when you talk about this team overall, you have to look at this draft, and the big question around this team in the draft and even in some of the free agent draft market for a lot of Bulls fans, a lot of people in Chicago, is what are you guys doing? I think that we're being way too hard on this Bulls team for what happened in the draft. For everything else, we'll talk about that as well. But I do want to break that down. But first, I do want to get you guys' opinion. Let me know how you guys feel in the comments below. What are your thoughts on Caleb Grills and Wooga Poplar? Do you think that both of these guys can make an impact on the team? Do you think either of these guys have a shot at making the team, or are these just camp bodies that you need and every team needs? We'll see. We've seen guys be just camp bodies that ended up making the team in the long run, right? So I think that there is a opportunity for both of these young men to come in here and make a real mark on the team. But I do think you have to do that kind of quickly here, and especially for a guy like Caleb Grills, who at this point you're really talking about having question marks on. He spent so much time in college. Is his game going to translate to the NBA? Let's talk about the draft overall, though. Appreciate you guys for tuning in and showing love. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page, leave a 5-star review. Y'all know what to do. I am here to let you guys know the Chicago Bulls had a good draft. I don't know if anybody else at Chicago sports media is saying this, because most of the time you get a bunch of people who didn't watch a bunch of draft picks in the draft. Why? Because you don't care about the Bulls, right? But you got to talk about them because it's a part of the job. You got to write about them because it's a part of the job. But you're not actually watching some of the pieces that are available to you in this draft. So to me, when I look at a guy like Noah Essengay, I think that he is very, very talented. And that is the goal of this draft. You have to go out and you have to find pieces that can show you that they are talented. And your goal, especially when you're sitting at the 12th spot, is to make sure that you're not leaving, for lack of a better term, any meat on the bone behind with any of the players that come behind the player that you are drafting. We've seen the Chicago Bulls do this a number of times, which is why I understand some of Bulls fans' trepidation. But when you add a guy like Noah Essengay, who I think, listen, when you break his game down, and I've talked about his game, he's got all the physical tools, 6'9" wingspan, very fluid mover. He can defend multiple positions. I understand that he's very slender. We always say slender like no one gains muscle when they come to the NBA. Like, this guy's going to be working out here in efficiency at the rim. Dominant, 73% efficiency on fast breaks at the rim. Also finished at a 69% efficiency around the rim. Also shot the mid-range ball kind of floaters and some of those two-dribble pull-ups. He shot that at a 63%. He is incredibly efficient inside of the three-point line, three-point arc right now. And I think that's something that you can't overlook. Those are the kind of players that you want to get. And I understand people are looking and going, but Derek Queen was right there. You're the same people that hate Vooch every night. Come on, dog. Like, you can't, and I've said this to Jordan JC on the Chicago Bulls Breeze. You guys heard it when we had the morning breeze over here, streamed over here as well. You can't hate Nikola Vucevic's game and love Derek Queen's game. I think you ended up adding a young man that adds defensive versatility, that adds offense, that adds a ton of upside. And yes, I do think he has the highest ceiling in this draft. I also think that he has the lowest floor. It is the widest gap for me because it comes down to what the Chicago Bulls want to do. And I think you could say a similar thing about Lachlan Albrick, right? When you look at his game, I mean, he is a young man who can finish in a multitude of ways. Excuse me. I think he is somebody who, around the rim, extremely efficient yet again, just gets the job done. Solid rebounder, solid size, has a good wingspan, like does all of those things that you want to see the Bulls do. Maybe needs to improve a little bit on the defensive end, but really good on the offensive side of the ball. Watched a couple of his scrimmages and, of course, watched him at the NBA Draft Combine. And when you see his game, you just kind of look at him and go, okay, like, this young man is an offensive juggernaut. He's got a little bit of game to him, especially inside of the paint, uses his size well, uses his body well, box out extremely efficiently. I think he needs to add a little bit more as a rebounder, but that is an aspect of his game that is okay right now and that you can live with where he's at, especially if he's going to be in the second round, right? kind of a two-way player or kind of a at best right now he's a bench player. He's a bench piece for you coming into the season, and he had some toughness that you really want to see, and the dynamic between him and Josh Giddey is going to be very interesting to see how they play that out as well. I think here's the big thing for the Chicago Bulls right now with both of these guys, and why Bulls fans have so much trepidation to go in and say this was a good draft. You've got a developmental piece in Noah Essengue. You've got or Essengue. I got to figure out how to say it. I've heard it said multiple ways. They said Essengue on the freaking draft when they called his name. I've heard people say Essengue. I don't know where we're going with this. We're going to figure this out. But I think the big thing is that you've got this wide gap of how good he can be and how bad he can be. And I've said, I texted Hayes after, and I was like, this dude could be all the way up to Brandon Ingram level talent. He could be, his floor could be Tony Snell when he was out there running, right? Like it's that wide of a range for what this young man could be. And the trepidation that a lot of Bulls fans feel is because you've got to develop these guys and you haven't done a great job of developing players. Now, last season excluded is kind of the conversation there, but I also think a lot of people draw the line on who develops and who doesn't in a weird spot. You can't sit here and say, well, Kobe White's developed and Ayo Dosunmu was developed and Josh Giddey played great in the second half of the season and Matas Buzelis has developed and all of these things, and then go, but the Bulls don't develop anybody. No, there are players that do stand out as far as development pieces that I believe that you can say do make an impact on the game right now that you were excited about last season. Now, does that mean that they've developed the best players? No, Patrick Williams has not developed. And I think that's something you can't overlook. You brought over Marko Simonovic. Nothing ended up happening with that. There are misses in there as well, but it's tough for me to sit here and say, well, you know, this team, I think a lot of the fear, I should say, for Bulls fans is, are the Bulls going to get the most out of this young man when it doesn't feel like you've gotten the most out of any of the pieces that you have brought in, even the guys in free agency. Now, again, I say that with this in mind as well, though. How much weight do you put on what you saw last season from Matas Buzelis? Matas Buzelis developed really, really well. And yes, it would be nice to have a shooting coach at Peter Patton for Noah Essengue, but they didn't go out there and eliminate every single player development coach on this team. And I don't know if you guys know this or not, there's only like 8 or 9 teams with player development staffs in place, and the Chicago Bulls are one of them. Most people just let the players kind of have their own coaches, and then they utilize their coaches as player development coaches. Like, this to me is one where I can separate the draft from who the Bulls are. The goal of the draft is to get very high upside pieces. The goal of the draft is to get players who stand out, who do have the high ceiling and who you can get the most out of. And you can't go into a draft and say, well, my hope is that we get the most out of them, but we don't know if we're going to get the most out of them. You know what I mean? Like, you're going in with the high expectations that you put on yourself to say that young man's going to come play for us and we're going to get every bit that we can out of him, and he's going to turn into a real good player here. I think what this also says as well is, and when you look at Noah Essengue or Essengue, I got to figure that out. I'm sick of going back and forth. I'm gonna say Essengue for this one. When you look at Noah Essengue and how his game kind of pans out here, is that right now the goal is for him to be a number 2 or number 3 or even number 4 to Josh Giddey and Matas Buzelis. The goal is not for him to come in here and be a superstar on day one. There's going to be development that takes place. It's going to take time. The goal is still make Matas really good. You have a piece that proved that he was one of the top 2 to 3 rookies in the draft last season. You need to continue to build on that. That is where the Chicago Bulls focus is going to be. Now, you hope that Noah Essengue and Lachlan Albrecht can come in here and add something to the team, but realistically speaking, you're looking for them to add number 2 capabilities, number 3 capabilities, number 4 capabilities, wherever it is that they end up this season, because you've already got Josh Giddey, you've already got Kobe White, you've already got Matas Buzelis. That is the pecking order right now, and it seems like you're trying to move on from Nikola Vucevic. We heard about Lonzo and P. Will, of course. Like, that's where the pecking order lies in all of this, and so I'm not one that's going to sit here and worry about where Noah Essengue is at right now. I see the upside. I see the talent. You have to get the most out of them. Hopefully the Bulls can. We haven't seen them do that a ton here, but we saw them do that last season with Matas, where he, like I said, proved that he was one of the top 2 to 3 rookies in the draft. And I think that right now, if you feel like the Bulls can go out there and develop Modest and continue to develop Modest, as a Bulls fan, you should feel a little bit more excitement about what you just did in the draft and what you're going to continue to do with some of last year's draft picks. But again, let me know how you guys feel in the comments below. I'll be down there talking with you guys as well. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page, leave a 5-star review. Y'all know what to do. How did you feel about the NBA draft, about the Chicago Bulls draft? Like I said, I'll be down there talking with you guys as well. As always, it's your boy Pat the Designer back at it again. Y'all stay safe out there, Chicago. Bed down. One love. Or C-Red. I'm wrong podcast. C-Red. One love. C-Red Nation, stand up. Peace.